In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Emmeringen Foundation, Dewey and LaBeouf, the estate of Richard W. Weiland, Arcus Foundation, Gill Foundation, the Calamus Foundation, David Bonnet Foundation, and these funders, and by the annual support of In the Life members like you.
This season, In the Life marks 20 years of LGBT visibility on public television, documenting the movement for social justice and exposing the lies and misinformation about lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. Tonight, in true In the Life fashion, we take a hard look at New York's historic vote for marriage equality, how it happened, who stood in the way, and where do we go from here? And later, we look back at the impact In the Life has made over the past 20 years covering the culture wars.
We brought everybody together.
Act up!
And we're married.
There was nothing for him to hide.
Make a promise.
On July 24th, 2011, hundreds of gay and lesbian couples throughout the state of New York married in front of family and friends. 1 month earlier, Governor Cuomo had signed the marriage equality bill into law. Victory for same-sex marriage supporters was the joyous end of a long and contentious struggle that less than 2 years earlier had suffered a crushing setback when the same bill was voted down in the state Senate.
No one in New York State should ever forget the betrayal that happened in Albany on our right to be married.
Not everybody was an honest broker. Mistakes were made. I made mistakes. Groups made mistakes.
Shame! Shame!
It was a very sad and tough time, and personally, it was a very difficult time for me.
Going into the vote last time, I was very clear we were going to lose. So there were some people who I think thought we actually had the votes, so that I think was very difficult for them.
None of us are where we want to be tonight. We would be lying if we said we weren't sad, and we weren't disappointed, and we weren't outraged.
We thought we had till 2010 to organize for the vote, but Governor Patterson put it on special, extraordinary calendars. So we were sort of marched into having the vote happen in 2009.
We were hearing directly from legislators and their staff saying things like, you don't really have to worry about the gays, all they do is fight with each other.
So people did a frank analysis, an honest analysis, and developed a much smarter, more strategic plan for 2010 and 2011.
The goal was to take out some marriage no votes in the 2010 elections and replace them with marriage yes votes. And we succeeded. We got rid of some of those who voted no and replaced them with pro-equality candidates. But in the process, of course, the leadership changed in the Senate from Democratic to Republican, which created a different set of challenges.
58% of New Yorkers support the freedom to marry. The challenge has been to make those voices heard in Albany and to thread through the sometimes dysfunctional systems in the legislature, particularly in the state Senate.
While the 2010 elections brought in a Republican state Senate, they also swept in Governor Andrew Cuomo, who had campaigned on reforming Albany and passing marriage equality. In March of 2011, he asked equality advocates to meet with him.
He called LGBT leaders and advocates up for a strategy meeting and was there himself for over an hour, had his top people there, assigned his highest ranking staff person to work with us.
So please, join me in supporting marriage equality, equality for all New Yorkers.
He said, I am going to use my political goodwill that I have in the state of New York to help make this happen.
The momentum was there. All the organizations were working together for the first time. We formed a coalition.
We knew it was important to send a message that we as a community were speaking with one voice, united in this fight together, and that's why we formed New Yorkers United for Marriage.
With the Republican Senate, we had to do a few things. One was we had to raise some Republican dollars to show Republican senators that Republicans supported this and would raise money to support those who supported equality. That was essential.
Legislators are so sensitive to their political future. If I take this vote, what's going to happen to my political career? So for a Republican, it is very helpful to know that there will be resources, financial resources, still there if they take this vote.
While several Republican donors were willing to commit to marriage equality, opposition to the bill was spearheaded by Reverend Ruben Diaz Sr., a Democratic state senator from the Bronx, who runs the New York Hispanic Clergy Organization and works closely with the National Organization for Marriage.
My concern is marriage between a man and a man is wrong. Marriage is an institution created by God, and to redefine marriage now is wrong.
We were definitely outspent, and a lot of our focus was on connecting folks with their legislators, and again, legislators simply didn't listen.
Think same-sex marriage doesn't affect your family? Legalizing gay marriage has consequences for kids.
And it wasn't that they didn't hear. I mean, some legislators have said, oh, we didn't hear that much from the supporters of traditional marriage. Yeah, that's not true. The same sort of, overwhelming calls that were coming in 2009 were coming in now.
We were all over the state. Our opposition was not all over the state. They were inside the Capitol. They played the lobbying game. They were there in the halls. They were there talking to senators behind closed doors, rather effectively, I would say, rather effectively. But they were not in the street. We were all over the street.
Marriage equality for gay and lesbian New Yorkers?
These folks came out of a full-time job and stood on corners in key districts for hours getting postcards signed, stopping constituents, and basically pleading our case with them. Educating right there on the spot. We had flash calls going on where our volunteers had a cell phone. They would call the senator from that district, and folks would leave a message. We had phone banking, door-to-door petitioning going on.
From Buffalo to Rochester, out on Long Island, Troy, upstate, downstate. We engaged people, we talked to them, and we saw the energy and we saw the passion on our side.
No senator I asked to meet with said no. Everyone sat down with me just to be honest about who you are and what your life is like. And when these senators sit down with you and they talk to you and they hear about my partner and my father and my partner's dad and our families, it's hard to stay stuck in the rhetoric.
I also saw the light come on in some of their eyes as they changed their position. And that, to me, was the most remarkable.
You talk to any of the senators that switched their vote from no 2 years ago to yes, they will all say what a difference 2 years makes in the number of constituent contacts we receive by email, by phones, the people stopping them on the streets.
On June 13, 2011, 3 Democratic state senators publicly announced they would switch their vote from no to yes on marriage equality.
6,015 people had weighed in on this issue, and in the end, 4,839 people wanted me to vote yes. So in the end, that is my vote.
It was a tremendous victory and really gave us a lot of momentum when the 3 Democrats came forward and said that they were going to vote yes, and they publicly said they were going to vote yes.
We were at 29 then with a magic number of 32, but the hard work was still in front of us, which was getting 3 or 4 Republicans to say yes, and more importantly, getting a vote out of a Republican conference.
Michael?
Governor, would you be announcing today your decision on whether to put a bill in or not?
We're going to have a meeting. We're actually overtime on the meeting. We're going to be meeting right after this, Michael, and we're going to discuss that topic. The group will make a decision, and then I'm sure we'll make that decision public.
I was actually in the meeting. We sat down, and the governor asked us all point blank what we wanted to do, if we felt that the time was right to push the bill forward. And we all, of course, said yes. And then he asked us to just wait a few minutes, and then Senator Alisi came in the room and let us all know that he was, in fact, going to come out in support and wanted our help standing with the press.
I am Jim Alisi. I'm a Republican. I was born that way.
I can't tell you the elation that came over me at that point, because I had always known in my heart that it was a bipartisan issue. And here he was.
I give you my vote. Thank you.
Soon after, Senator Roy McDonald came forward and said yes on the Republican side. Now, there were two publicly acknowledged Republicans saying that they would vote yes, and we needed another one to win, and even better, two, so that no one would be the one vote to make it happen.
I love New York. I love New York. I love New York. I love New York.
The momentum just built. But then I have to say that there was a lull in that momentum as the week went by and no vote came. No one wanted to be the 32nd vote. We were literally back to back in the hall, and you couldn't walk down the hall. There was no space there. It was very tense.
Now we are looking, obviously, for the remaining votes on the Republican side, and apparently the discussion is there. From what I understand, there were about 4 hours that they spent yesterday trying to figure out what to do.
The middle of the week was tense, I'll give you that. I had anxiety. I was nervous.
And at this point, we're not entirely convinced we have enough votes, but I still think we do. To be out there on such a controversial issue and then not have the issue come to the floor for a vote is, it's not a disaster, but it's really not a good thing.
We knew that time was not our friend, and that the longer things waited, the more things could potentially go wrong. Because we were really worried about the opposition, the protests, the pressures that were being put on the senators from all kinds of opposition.
We believe that a same-sex marriage bill is in defiance of a fundamental fact of human society established by the Creator and Redeemer.
I think it's important to let them know that there are also people of faith here that believe in equality for all.
As the Republican conference met to discuss adding religious exemptions to protect religious institutions from having to serve same-sex couples, tensions mounted in the hallways of the Capitol on both sides of the issue.
We are not asking to get married into a church that does not want us. So it's really not an issue. And it's just a delay tactic to delay the vote to come to the floor.
Religious exemptions is not strong enough, and I'm lobbying the senators that are wavering to vote no on the bill.
Marriage between two persons of the same sex is wrong. To get some exemption doesn't make it right.
We're telling the religious folks, whatever you want to do in your church, that's your business. It has nothing to do with civil rights, my human rights.
We don't know when there's going to be a vote. It's really very, very close.
The purpose was to ensure religious exemptions.
That there are protections in this bill for church and religious organizations.
On a personal note, I have, as many people are aware, certainly struggled over this issue.
Who am I to say that someone does not have the same rights that I have with my wife, who I love? I vote in the affirmative, Mr. President.
I vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Ayes 33, nays 29.
It was just like a wave of cheering, very exhilarating. Made the last 13 years really worth it.
Democracy works when the people speak. And the people spoke in volumes over these past few months, and this legislature responded this week to their...
This is the first time a Republican-led legislative chamber has voted in support of the freedom to marry, with Republicans providing the margin of victory. This is a cause and a campaign in New York that was supported by business leaders as well as labor leaders, Republicans as well as Democrats and independents, by young people working those phone banks, and by older people telling their stories and embracing it.
But the governor wanted the bill to pass before the 11 o'clock news. They locked the chamber and we passed it. No more talking. No, this is it. It was a dictatorship ruled by Governor Cuomo. Even though the law has passed, it's not over yet. It's not over yet.
The legislature has voted. This is a creation of the legislature. It can be done away with by the legislature. So I think that the political class views this as a done deal. And I think, again, as we're seeing in Iowa and New Hampshire, that's not correct.
Our opponents have pledged to raise $2 million to take on these legislators that have stood up for love and equality. And they are all up for election. Just a little over a year away in November of 2012. So we have to make sure that we stand by those who stand by us.
We were successful in New York. So yes, we'll talk about taking this model and bringing it to another state. And in fact, last Friday, Governor O'Malley was in Annapolis to announce his strong support for a marriage bill. And he talked about what happened in New York. He talked about the broad coalition.
In the aftermath of the New York victory, we testified in Congress at the first ever hearing on repealing the so-called Defense of Marriage Act and passing the Respect for Marriage Act to undo this federal discrimination. In 2011, we now have 6 states, 35 million people living in states where gay people can marry. We have more than 100,000 married couples with their kids, their loved ones, their families. And we have the living proof that ending marriage discrimination helps families, and contrary to the constant scare tactic of the right wing, hurts no one.
In the
On June 9th, 1992, In the Life was first broadcast.
Light in the loafers.
If you sing in the choir,
Then you are in the life.
Kate Clinton was our host.
Thank you. What a way to come out.
It was the early 90s, and it was really very radical to do what we were doing.
Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, gosh, not another show on gays and lesbians on television.
It was great to be the first host. And I don't really think I knew the import of it because it was so crazy busy backstage. I mean, Julie Taymor had nothing on John Scagliotti. He had everything planned. He packed a variety show.
My then boyfriend, Giuseppe, and I were in the very top row. So the idea that I would then go from sitting in the audience to then being a correspondent for the show to now sitting here and talking about it 20 years later, really, it means I'm getting old.
Very little material had been on public television. To have a voice, this was a major leap.
Oh, that piece of film, Vito and I made that in 1983.
Todd and Martha.
This historic public television broadcast was quickly met with opposition.
It seems that the broadcasting apologists are hiding behind Big Bird, Mr. Rogers, and Masterpiece Theater, laying down their quality smokescreen while they shovel out funding for gay and lesbian variety shows.
Bob Dole called us out on the floor of Congress, saying that we were hiding behind this smokescreen to slip in these horrific gay images.
Daddy and his roommate are very happy together, and I'm happy too. These are the 2 copies that were out on the shelves. They are now in my possession, and librarian, you're not getting them back.
The right always has us at the center of their crosshairs in the culture wars, and especially in the early 90s, when we as a community, and In the Life, documenting this movement of our community saying, no, we are not going to be silent, we will not be invisible, we want our American rights.
As time went along, the folks who are running In the Life decided the gay community needs news.
The feeling here today is incredible. There's a true sense of unity.
We have come out to reach out across America.
The gay community needs to know what's happening with it.
Act up! Fight back! Fight AIDS!
Not just in New York or in Washington or LA, but in other places around the country. You're letting people know in Ohio or in Kansas or Texas or wherever that they're gay people. There are gay people everywhere.
It was the first authentic programming produced by LGBT people for LGBT people. You know, it never went through the filters of big broadcast. It really was kind of homespun. It got right into the grassroots. It got right into the nitty-gritty of what LGBT life was like, what the issues were that we confronted over the last couple of decades.
I think the function of In the Life has been to show an LGBT world and an LGBT point of view of the world that is an invitation to come out.
Welcome to In the Life, America's news magazine on gay.
This shift to a news magazine allowed the show not only to profile the lives of LGBT people,
The first open lesbian appointed to a federal bench.
but to also counter messaging of the radical right.
The gay movement is the spear point in the culture war against the Judeo-Christian value system.
We were trying to counter the images that were being put out there about us, that we're sick and we're sinful and we're destroying our children.
I wrote Alfie's Home to let children, teens, adults, educators, and therapists know that the possibility of changing from homosexual to heterosexual exists.
We did not accept the debate that the rest of the mainstream was accepting, which is that somehow homosexuals, gay people, whatever, were no good.
That's black lesbians. I don't know who put that, let that one go by, but somebody should have been all over that.
If we accept the homosexual agenda, we will be destroying the integrity of the marriage-based family, the innocence of childhood, and indeed the very fabric of our society.
Recognizing that the struggle for LGBT equality extended beyond American borders, In the Life went global.
I was really curious, about this lesbianism. In India, we don't know much about lesbianism.
In order for gay people to make their voices heard, they make their voices heard in many ways. They don't make their voices heard only in the political arena. Those of us who survived the 80s lost hundreds of friends. We probably were walking wounded ourselves. AIDS was going to be an important part of whatever we did.
My name is Ed Ditterline, and this is John Perkins. We were lovers for 18 years. He died 3 days ago, and I'm really very sad.
AIDS did accelerate things.
And I think the culture wars are a great thing because they're a sign that we're fighting. And are people fighting against us? Yes. And I wish they were perceived more clearly as the bigots they are, as opposed to just the other side. But the fact that we are standing up and fighting is a new manifestation of us.
Act up, fight back. To be able to capture the visceral and rightfully so anger of our community. We stood up and said, we demand the medication, we demand the attention, we demand the pharmaceutical companies to hear us, to listen, to change things.
A human chain around the Capitol to demand more leadership from elected officials.
More action now! I would say there's probably nothing more powerful or moving than to see them unfold and to lay out the amount of quilts, one panel after another, and then to step back and see that it covered the entire mall.
It's a critical archive of our movement, of our LGBT movement.
We still live at a time that there isn't widespread capturing of gay history. So in a way, In the Life has become one of our central archives in the last century.
The In the Life archive also inspires hope through the stories of icons and allies.
The gay community has always been incredibly supportive of me from the very, very beginning.
I'm glad I'm out.
The truth sets you free, that's for sure.
Hi, I'm John Waters.
I'm Cherry Jones.
I'm Rosie O'Donnell.
I'm Ani DeFranco.
I'm Alan Cumming. Welcome to In the Life.
20 years later, In the Life continues to shatter stereotypes and expose injustices waged on LGBT people.
The family is the oldest and arguably most influential Christian conservative organization in Washington.
Someone's got to stand up to the religious right.
The religious right really wants a theocracy, really wants the laws of the country to reflect their often very narrow-minded religious ideas.
The religious right is wrong on a lot of the issues, or I'm sorry, not a lot of the issues, all of the issues pertaining to the community.
Expanding beyond traditional broadcast, In the Life continues to raise awareness and impact public policy.
You figure out ways to kind of skirt around the discrimination, but eventually it finds you.
Our focus is on federal policy. In the Life's focus is really on the public education. And the work we do is helped dramatically by the public education that In the Life does.
What changes laws are people's opinions.
Bullying is not a gay issue or a straight issue. It's a safety issue. It's about...
There is nothing more powerful than seeing people, seeing their worlds. If we just take gay marriage alone, every time it's a popular vote, and many times when it's just legislators, we lose. Because we haven't changed those hearts and minds. Our stories, that is what changed the New York legislator to vote for gay marriage. The only way to get rid of fear of who we are and what, supporting us is going to do is by getting to know us and hearing our stories.
Thank you for watching In the Life. To watch more historical coverage from the last 20 years of In the Life, visit our website at itlmedia.org.
I can't believe this day has finally come.
It's just a proud day for America that says that diversity wins over adversity.
It's here and we're rocking.
21 years. 42 years.
Together for 4.5 years.
We've been together since college.
I'm so happy. Me too. Waited so long for this.
Finally did it.
Yeah. Did it.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Emmeringen Foundation, Dewey and LaBeouf, the estate of Richard W. Weiland, Arcus Foundation, Gill Foundation, the Calamus Foundation, David Bonnet Foundation, and these funders. And by the annual support of In the Life members like you.